Here we go with another Chef Knives to Go quick look product review. I'm Steve Gamache, and we are looking at the Sugimoto number 6, model number 4006, because they have a lot of different models of cleavers available. So this is it's a heavier cleaver, but it's also a vegetable cleaver for fine work. It's not for chopping bones or anything like that, but it's got some weight to it. They advertise the core steel on this. It's a 3-layer construction, but the core steel they just label as pure Japanese ore. Some research and what a couple educated guesses on Chef Knives to Go. They think this might be Shidogami number 1 or number 2. If so, that is a very high quality steel that takes a great edge, fine grain. At this heat treat, about 62, 63 should hold a nice edge for that rendition. And so it's a super high quality core steel. There's a soft iron cladding, which is also reactive, so it's an all-reactive blade on either side of that core steel. And the cladding does come over the top and cover the spine, so it's a 3-layer construction. The weights and dimensions will vary a touch, but this one's 444 grams or 15.7 ounces, so it definitely has some heft to it. Edge length about 220 millimeters, so this is bigger than the 4030 model. It's exactly the same size as the 4007, the number 7 cleaver. It's just less thick at the spine, and so the blade is a little thinner overall, but it's exactly the same dimensions. So pretty much between the number 6 and number 7, you've got your choice of weights is the main difference. So the edge length, as I mentioned, 220 millimeters. 8.65 inches, overall length about 326, 12.8 inches. The blade height in the middle here in the highest part is around 110 millimeters. And then it's a little shorter at the front and the back because of the way the curve of the belly goes. And the spine stays straight, so you'll get a little less height here at the front and the back. The spine thickness on this one is about 3.6 millimeters coming out of the handle. And then I measured it halfway down, and it was about 2.1 millimeters, and then it pretty much just holds that 2.1, 2.2 all the way down. So it's pretty stiff. It's got a fair amount of mass to it. The balance point on this is pretty far forward, as you might suspect. It's all blade, basically, with a handle tacked on to it. Tang's light, handle's light. So there's your balance point. Lots of ways to grip these. I am no expert, but you've got your standard pinch grip. You've got some people put a finger on the spine. Some people like to choke up and put 2 fingers back here to kind of a little more control, or even middle finger there and finger on the spine. There's lots of ways to use these as far as grip goes. The let's see, we talked about that. Let's get a look at it. Big blade, but here's kind of the beauty shot. So if we look a little closer, we've got deeply embossed kanji on the right side of the blade as you would hold it cutting. Number 6 to identify it. You've got a stamped logo right there. The cool thing is they've got a brush finish that goes horizontal with the blade, and that's kind of nice. When you clean a blade, you're definitely washing it and wiping it, typically this way with your drying cloth, and so the scratches that might accumulate tend to go with the finish and help hide that, so that's pretty cool over time. On the left side of the blade as you hold it, you've got their stamped logo and name on there, Tokyo. There is a sandblasted finish they put on it right here, and then as they start to hit the grind towards the edge, you can see that go away, and then it's pretty hard to tell, but there is a cladding line. It's pretty far down, but there's a cladding line that separates that from the core steel. And then you've got a pretty generous edge bevel on here. These are really sharp out of the box. I forgot to mention that in the 4030 video, but all 3 of these I've had, the number 6, number 7, and 4030 have all been at least a 6, maybe a 7 out of 10. Very, very sharp right out of the box. Nice edge on these. There's a little bit of relief to the spine and the choil, very comfortable, so you can pretty much just take these out and start working with them. It doesn't look like there's really lacquer on this from what I've seen. If there is, it's very, very thin. I think it's a raw blade, but if the lacquer's there, it's so nicely done, it's very, very thin. Let's see here. Let's look at the cutting board shot. So here's what it looks like on the cutting board. A little bit of belly towards the tip, a little bit of belly towards the rear, more towards the front. So you're not really going to rock this much. I mean, I'm digging the tip in right there, but for real short stuff, chives or something like that. Maybe scallions you might be able to get away with, but it's really more about dropping the blade on food with this style of knife. The weight of the knife tends to help cut, and you let the knife do the work. But here's what the profile looks like. And again, this has some pretty good heft to it. Number 7, basically very similar knife with a thicker spine, thicker blade overall. There's still really thin at the edge, but the number 7 is just going to be a heavier version of this. So here's what the grind looks like. So it doesn't taper a ton until you hit right in here, and you can kind of see where that grind starts down here. And it does get pretty thin at the edge. These really do drop through food nice. You're going to get reasonable food separation as well, which means a little bit less food sticking on the sides of the blade, because this doesn't want to quite ride up the blade as much as a thin cleaver, like let's say the CCK thin cleavers. So you should still get decent food separation out of this. And I did play with this one, and I'm not a cleaver person, and I'm not an expert on it, but it definitely really sharp. It definitely drops through food and performs very, very well. That weight just helps take it right through there using the weight of the blade. So excellent, excellent knife. So this is the Sugimoto number 6 4006 vegetable cleaver.